Hi guys, my name's Dav and welcome to D&DGaming. If this is your first time visiting our channel, we provide honest and in-depth game reviews on a wide range of PC games and review them from the perspective of two experienced gamers. We highly recommend you click that subscribe button and ring that notification bell so you don't miss any of our up and coming game reviews. If you find you like this review, remember to give it a thumbs up by hitting that like button. With that being said, in for review this time around is platform puzzle game Candleman. Reviewing the game with me is my brother Dale.
Hi guys, Candleman is a 3D platforming puzzle game with action-adventure elements. The game was originally developed by Chinese studio Spotlightor Interactive, who are now known as Candleman Games Studio. It was originally published by Indienova and Zodiac Interactive, but now also published by Candleman Games. The game was initially created as a prototype and after initial positive reception, went into full development. It initially released on Xbox One in February 2017 and then re-released in October 2017 as Candleman: The Complete Journey with a DLC titled Lost Light. It was released on PC in February 2018. So Dav, what are your first impressions?
My initial impression from looking at screenshots of the game was an indie platform puzzle game with a storyline that a game developer dreamt up one night or something like that.
So I didn't look into the game at all before playing it, so I had no idea what it was all about, and obviously you don't get an awful lot from the title just being called Candleman. You jump straight into the game and it becomes quite clear quickly what you need to do and the fact that this is very much a platformer style of game. Although I didn't immediately realise how the candle mechanics worked and assumed at first that it was against the clock. I then realised it's not so much against the clock, but preserving the candle by not lighting it unless absolutely necessary. And I did almost die on the first level, but fortunately I worked this kind of mechanic out just before the candle burned all the way through. Once I realised it was like a platformer type game, I kind of knew what I was in for really. What are your general thoughts following your playthrough?
Although the story is a bit out there, I actually quite enjoyed the game in terms of the story, and it does make more sense towards the end. It's quite a unique game in terms of player character. I mean, I can't say I've played any game similar where you play as a candle with legs. It's quite a strange one, but yeah, it's quite interesting.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed this one. It was far from perfect, but it's a relatively short game, so it didn't grind too much, and I could mostly forgive the frustrations I came across. That being said, it is very average, and this will be reflected in my score at the end. It's a very simple little game. It feels very indie in the sense of independent developer, not Indiana Jones, which we reviewed this last time. Always like it could have been developed by a single person. It's one of those sort of games. So it starts off with very short levels and then progressively gets longer as you work your way through the chapters. It's a relatively easy game, I found, and you actually have 10 lives per level, so it's quite forgiving. I think the worst level I did where I messed up numerous times, but I still had 4 lives left at the end, so I didn't even come close to really dying, as in having to restart the whole level or the whole chapter. Many levels I didn't die at all and just used maybe 1 life, which might have been just due to a stupid mistake. It's almost one of these games that beginners could just jump into. It's really not a challenging game in that sense. So what do you think in terms of graphic options?
There's next to no graphic options, very basic.
Yeah, there's essentially no graphic options in this one, just a slider I noticed, which doesn't actually make clear what it's changing. When I slid it all the way to the left, it just seemed to make it more pixelated. Yeah, so it's basically just a slider, which doesn't make clear what it's actually changing anyway. Other than that, just brightness and resolution, so very basic. What about graphics generally and the graphics performance?
We'll put our PC specs up on screen as always, but I ran with the game on highest graphic settings available and it ran perfectly on my PC with no frame drops or graphical issues of any kind. So in terms of graphics themselves, they're pretty good. Some nice textures in there, nothing that looked out of place in its setting, but I guess they're quite simplistic and not greatly varied, I guess. It's quite dark for most of the game, so where the game does stand out is within its lighting. It's well done and there's an inventive use of lighting in the game, especially in some of the puzzle parts.
Yeah, I thought the graphics themselves were fine, nothing special, quite basic in some places, but certainly didn't stand out in a bad way or anything, and good enough for this type of game. So yeah, no real issues for me there.
So in terms of player controls, they're very basic controls. We're sad with a space bar to jump and control to light the candle's flame. There's no key rebindings available, which may annoy some people who don't like using WASD. There is controller support also available, although we didn't test this as part of the review.
Yeah, they're very basic controls in this one. I used the keyboard as usual.
So in terms of game story, gameplay and mechanics, play as a little anthropomorphic candle with legs that begins its journey on an abandoned ship. The candle questions its existence and purpose, but whilst travelling through the ship, the candle spots a lighthouse and this becomes its inspiration for going on a journey. The game is spent journeying through varying environments on a quest to find out more about the candle's existence. For me, the story was a bit too out there. As mentioned earlier, I felt like it was dreamt up by a game dev who went to work the next day and was like,
"Boss, I've got a great idea for a game.
Go on then, Johnny, what you got?"
You play as a candle that wants to be a lighthouse and goes on a journey."
Go on then, we got nothing else in the pipeline here at Weird Dream Games. Don't use all of this month's budget, remember? Nigel needs some for making that game he dreamt where you play as a pair of lost bollocks with legs and have to get back to your owner. What's he calling it again? Oh yeah, Bollocks Man.
So in terms of game mechanics, it's a basic platform in terms of movement and level progression. You work your way through the level using your flame to light other stationary candles that you come across and solving puzzles to reach a bright glowing orb at the end of the level. Most of the levels are dark, so you find yourself regularly lighting up in order to see where you're going, but you do have to be careful not to be wasteful and burn down, as you die if you completely burn out. The game is split into 12 chapters, which have a varying number of levels. Each level has a different number of candles that you can find and light. However, it's worth noting that you don't have to find them all to complete the level. The levels vary in environments, and you do regularly use the environment to solve puzzles and progress.
So in terms of UI, there's not really much to speak of. As you light candles within the level, the number you have lit and have left to find pops up at the top of the screen, but this is the only thing that comes up on the screen in terms of UI as you play.
Yeah, no UI really in this one, apart from what Dav already mentioned there. And due to being a platformer, a cluttered UI is unnecessary really, and I think it's better to keep it clean. So yeah, it was perfectly fine in that sense.
So in terms of sound and music, there's no music in the actual game itself, and only in the menus and on completion of a level, but these are very basic tunes rather than music as such. The environment sounds, however, are really good in the game, and the lack of any soundtrack over the top and some very quiet parts mean that the environment sounds are really effective in setting the mood and the tone of the game. The one sound that did annoy me, however, was the candle's feet as it walks. It gets very repetitive and basically constant, and in the quiet environment, sometimes it's all you hear. It gets a bit much at times. There is a narrator that sometimes talks about the candle's journey as you go, and she sounded okay, I guess. Didn't stand out to be all that great, but not bad either, I suppose.
Narrator sounds okay. It's been localized to a number of languages, but I obviously played on English, and basically a single voice actor telling the story at the end of each level. Not outstanding voice acting, but it did the job.
Being chased by the phantoms, the little candle flees for his life.
There's a kind of faint background music in places, which sets the scene okay and provides a bit of atmosphere, but as Dav already mentioned, not really any main music in the game as such. So did you come across any bugs or glitches?
I didn't come across any major bugs or glitches in the game. It actually ran pretty smoothly on my PC.
Yeah, same, it runs smoothly on mine. No issues at all really there.
So to sum up things I liked about the game, although joking about it earlier and the story is weird at first to comprehend, it actually grows on you as you play, and by the end I actually really quite like the story and the concept of the game. It's quite a relaxing game to play. It's a good filler between more intensive games, I think. The environments, although at times a bit too mixed and not great continuity between them, on their own they're actually really good and had some inventive and creative aspects to them.
In terms of things I liked about this one, I liked it was easy to jump in and out of due to the short chapters and the short levels even. The levels do get a little bit longer as you get through, but yeah, easy to jump in and out of this one. As mentioned, the levels themselves aren't particularly long. I feel like some games like these kind of platformer games can be quite frustrating if they have really long levels and very few save points or anything like that. Whereas with this, I think they got the balance just about right in terms of the length of the levels. I thought it was decent replayability. As we already mentioned, the main thing is essentially lighting all the candles in terms of the challenge, other than making it to the end of the level, that is just lighting those candles. And so although there's not really much incentive to actually lighting them, you get a bit of extra story at the end of that level. But in terms of replayability, I guess you can go back in, try and get them all, and that can add a bit of extra gameplay to it. I thought it was mostly good level design. Say mostly. I felt at times like it's almost like one team developed some levels and another team developed others. So some of them I just really enjoyed, and had that right balance of kind of being challenging and but also being quite fun. Then others were I just found frustrating, and I thought, why? What are they doing here? Like, this is such a frustrating level. And then you'll go back to one you enjoy, and it was a little bit all over the place. That being said, I thought there was a good variety of levels. Some I really enjoyed, others a bit more basic. There was a good range of different level mechanics as well. So some of the levels you need really precise movement, because you might be walking on thin beams of wood or something like that. Other levels have like water-based challenges, and so it did keep it interesting.
So in terms of things I didn't like, generally I like the environments individually as mentioned, but some of them felt too varied to enable suitable continuity between them when coming together as a whole. It went from inside a ship to a jungle forest type environment, then to a rocky water type environment, just to then get to a lighthouse. They're good environments individually, but together they didn't seem to make a lot of sense or have much continuity between them. I thought it was far too easy. There were only a handful of bits that really tested me, and I felt it was just a bit too easy and difficulty needed to ramp up more as the game went on. As Dale pointed out earlier, you kind of die a few times as you go through, but most of the time I finished the levels with pretty much all of the lives still.
Yeah, in terms of things I didn't like, the jump mechanic could be a little awkward at times. I mostly found this early on, because in a few of the earlier levels, they're kind of swinging about because you're on this ship and you're using the momentum to kind of carry you. That actually kind of largely disappears in the later levels. But I think because I was using keyboard as well, sometimes these platformer games are better suited to a controller, and this was one of those I think probably would be better played on a controller if you've got one. Did find the difficulty a bit random. So for example, I found the second chapter in the game easier than the first chapter, but then the third chapter ramped up entirely. Normally you would expect it to get harder progressively as you work your way through the game. Yeah, in this case, a little bit all over the place.
So in terms of missed opportunities, I think they could have put varying difficulty settings in. As mentioned, on the whole, it was just too easy. And I think they could have adapted it to have more difficulty settings. I think additional game modes, such as timed or speed runs, for example, these could have been levels where you're gradually burning down from the start and you have to get to the end before burning out completely. So it could be that rather than in the main level where you're lighting the candle through small sections and you gradually burn down, this is actually you're lit from the start for the whole time and you have to get through the entire level before burning out completely. I think something like these would have added a decent amount more content to the game.
I think it would have been good if they'd added a bit more DLC actually. I think a good one would have been Bollocks Man. So in terms of scores, what are you going to give this one, Duff?
On the whole, I actually really enjoyed this game. It was slow at times, but picked up at others. Had good graphics, immersive lighting and environments, effective sound. I just feel that the storyline, although it kind of made sense in the end, it was a bit weak and it really had some missed opportunities to create more gameplay alternatives and to be less single track, I guess, in terms of its modes. So for me, it's a reasonable 7 out of 10.
For me, this was a simple but fun game that I did enjoy for the most part. There's nothing outstanding here, and it could be a little frustrating at times. And it is just a very basic, average game, but does a job. And so for me, it's a 7 out of 10.
Well guys, thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe and comment. Hit that bell icon to be notified when we upload a new video, and we'll see you in the next one.